Hello everybody, this is Fab. I have received a lot of questions, both in forums and other places, where people are asking me about how it's like to use virtual reality in DCS. And I thought I would make this small video and address some of the most common questions. As you can see, I'm at the runway in the LC, or the L39C, and about to take off. And I'm wearing my Oculus Rift mask. When you're watching the movie, you won't get the full 3D aspect, of course, because you're looking at a 2D screen. And also, the video capture will only capture one eye, so you don't have the full perspective as I have. But as you can see, I can look clearly around. I can lean forward, to the side. I can move totally free. And as you might see in the video, I can read all the instruments clearly, even if I lean back. I also have the zoom button, so I can zoom in like that, or look out in the distance and zoom in. And it's working quite nice. So let's spool the engine up, take off, and have a little flight. Spooling the engine up. And here we go. My setups for flying is Warthog, Thrustmaster Warthog, and I have a Battle Pro for pedals. And in most perspective, it covers all the buttons I need. Some of you might say, yeah, but you're wearing the mask so you can't see where the buttons are. But I guarantee you, when you've been wearing this mask for about a week or so, your brain remembers where your buttons are, so you will never have to look at your joystick or throttle handle. When I'm flying up here, some of you have experienced when you have been trying this in a store or by a friend or something, that you get some kind of vertigo or VR sickness. I had that in the start too, mainly because it's jittered a lot or lagged. But Rift has made new drivers, so the jitter is gone. As you can see, I've got no jitter. When I turn my head, the image is smoothly going around with me. As I was saying before, most of my controls are bound to my HOTAS. The controls I need on the spot I have on my HOTAS. That would be all my weapon setups, my radars, things like gear up and gear down, flaps, and all the other settings that you don't use as much. I still have it on my keyboard. If I tilt my head up like this, there's a gap between my nose and the VR mask where I can see my keyboard. That makes me able to push like outside view, inside view, stuff like that. But again, it's all buttons that you don't need on a fly.
Enfield 1, passing waypoint 3 at 5,000.
VR is not perfect yet, in the sense that if you're a eye candy guy, you've got a 4K screen at home, maybe 4 sets up or something like that, and you are in for the eye candy, VR is not for you. It's still low res, but if you're more in for the feel of flying, to get a grasp of the height and the overall feeling, there's nothing that can beat VR. And I used to have a setup with 3 screens and all the eye candy. And man, I haven't been used to the 3 screen setups since I got my VR. But again, VR is not for everyone. Some of you may have heard that, or read, that you can't read your instruments, you can't see what's in the HUD. But in the new version of DCS 1.5, there have been made a VR tab, and inside the VR tab you can set the pixel density. And what the pixel density does is like changing the res, the native res, so you get a higher compression sort of the picture inside your goggles, like almost getting a higher res. So now the instruments and the HUDs are perfectly readable. You can set it between 1.0, which is normal view, up to 2.5. Most of the guys I've been speaking to, including myself, we found that around 1.8 is the magic moment. That's where you get the best view versus machine power in your PC. This is only for the Rift yet, it's not for Vive.
Enfield 1, passing waypoint 4 at 5,000.
In my settings in the DCS, to make this work, I had to cut off all shadows. For some reason they take a vastly amount of FPS. But other than that, I have the sceneries I have set to max, the details set to max, my view is set to medium, AA is set to ×4, and the rest you can just jiggle around with. And as you might see, up here I got an FPS flexing around 65 to 75. When I get close to ground and to cities and stuff like that, it will go all the way down to 40. But again, the driver and the Oculus is smart, and it makes sure that you don't get lag and you don't get jiggery. Just as long as you try to stay above 38 and 40 FPS, it's totally smooth and painless. Let's turn around here. As you can see, I'm looking down at the town, doing a nice turn. What happens when you get the VR mask on is that when you make these controlled turns, you are completely aware of the attitude of the plane. Your brain is totally locked into the scenery and how the plane is moving. One of the backsides with VR is that plane spotting. It's really, really hard. Even with the zoom. Now I use a DK2 mask, and supposedly the CV1 is a tiny bit better, but again it's really, really hard. So I had one of my friends who is working in the Danish Air Force. I had him trying it out. And of course, like the most people that try this, he was stunned. He have been flying in the backseat of the F-16 several times, and he was really, really stunned at the illusion the mask gives you. So he invited one of his colleagues, which is his F-16 pilot, and what he said was that we tried two setups. We tried with 3 screens and head tracking, and we tried with the VR. And what he said was that the view you get in VR is the view that he gets in this plane in reality, because he said they are flying so fast and often the sighting is so bad that the way you can spot planes in VR mask is more like reality than the screens are. That said, you still have a disadvantage when you are flying in PvP sceneries and you're up against people using 2 or 3 4K screens, because they can spot you much, much clearer. On the other hand, the way you track other planes by looking up in the sky, for me at least, it gives a better understanding of my own aircraft's attitude versus the enemy than I had in the head tracker. Let's turn around here and prepare ourselves for landing. I'll just spool down to 70 RPMs and set out my brakes to take off some speed. One of the things that's really, really good in VR is when you're going in for a landing, for example. Normally, when you use the head tracker, you have to be very aware about your instruments. What speed am I having? What's my attitude? And so on. What's my height? But what happens when you use VR is you slowly begin to trust your sight more, because you have a totally clear understanding of what height and what speed you're moving at. Same when you are flying formation flying, or when you are trying to air tank. It's a heck of a lot easier, because you really understand, you really get a sense of what speed am I going at, what speed are they going at, what's my height, how am I moving in the air. It's priceless. And I'm spooling down to almost idle. And you can see as I fly over the town, the FPS is perfectly good, and when I move my head, I've got no jitter at all. But fab, it's so expensive. Down gear. Yeah, well, you see as I come in here, I just got to use to see. I have a perfectly clear understanding of what height and what speed I'm going at. And up we go again. What I was saying was the price for VR. I must say, when they started talking about the Rift, it was like, whoa, we're going to make it so cheap that everybody can get it. And when it hit the market, the CV1, we were all stunned about how expensive it was. But do as me. Get yourself a used DK2. If you take your time looking for it, you can get it as low as $75 or $100. And I know it's supposed to be. They will stop servicing it from Oculus in about a year. But then again, in about a year, there'll be so many CV1s either used or the price get lower at it that you can afford it. You see those two dots out there? That's planes. Well, this concludes it for today with the VR topic. I think I covered the most of the normal questions about how does this work and what's good and what's bad about it. But feel free to leave some comments, questions. I will answer them for you best I can, or I can make a video about it if there's something you would like to see how it works or how it looks. So that be all for today. Happy flying all.